Hello all, and happy Halloween! So this year, Halloween's my favorite holiday. So this year, I took up the challenge of watching a horror movie a day for the month of October. So I literally watched at least one horror movie a day for all of October. For a few days I watched 2 or 3, and wow! It's actually quite a challenge having to watch one horror movie a day for October. You start to get a bit horror worn out, and you gotta spice it up a bit to keep going. But yeah, I watched one horror movie every day for October, and I just wrapped it up with Death Race and Sinister. So I thought I would review and comment on some of the better horror movies that I saw during my horror marathon for Halloween. So out of all the movies I saw, and boy did I see a lot of horror movies, the best one that I saw, and the one that I have to recommend most, was Contracted. It was a great horror movie. If you can, you should really see it. So here's why I thought it was so good. So Contracted, spoiler warnings for some of these reviews, and trigger warnings for some of these reviews, because Contracted and some of the other movies I'm going to be commenting on are very dark, and Contracted specifically is a very disturbing movie. So warnings. But Contracted is a movie about this girl. Sorry, got a bit of a cough. This girl that goes to a party, and she goes to a party, and while at the party she gets drugged, she passes out, and this man rapes her, literally rapes her. She wakes up while it's happening, screams out no, and then passes out again because of the drugs. She comes to a little while later, can barely remember what happened. Eventually, she does remember that she was raped, and not only that, she got an STD out of it. It's one of the worst STDs ever. She starts losing hair. She starts bleeding everywhere. She gets horrible headaches. Every horrible thing that could happen to her starts happening to her. She starts going blind, for crying out loud. Now you would think, she'll just go to the doctor and get some help. But the doctor that she sees doesn't care. He sees her as just another patient, and he wants her out of the door as quickly as humanly possible. So he completely shrugs her off. Her mom, which she goes to help next, doesn't want to help her at all because the main character just recently came out as gay. So her mom hates her. Her mom will not accept her for being gay and completely, just despises her and will not help her with anything, blames her for everything wrong with her life. So no help there. She goes to her girlfriend for help, who's not ready for a relationship, so is currently giving her the cold shoulder, so no help there. So no matter where she goes to get help for this STD, for her life literally falling apart, she never gets it. And the whole movie, because of that, is just her looking for help and having the door slammed in her face, and then having horrible disease symptoms and slowly getting worse and worse and worse. And yes, it does sound very depressing, and yes, it does sound very disturbing, but when you watch it, you can't help to think that the filmmakers are trying to make some kind of powerful statement against STDs or against rape itself, and it seems like a really smart movie trying to say something really important. So you get that kind of sense out of it. Also, it's really well made. So I loved it. After it was over, I looked up the message boards on it. I found out about the controversy. Apparently, the advertising material that came along with the movie, that sold the movie, stated that the main character got the STD from a one-night stand. So they made no mention that she was raped in the plot synopsis on Netflix or IMDb or anywhere. And this is kind of disturbing, because if you go onto a message board for this, there's on IMDb, for example, there's 50 different threads of guys saying, "That's not rape. I drug my girlfriend and have sex with her all the time, and she screams out no all the time. That's just being playful." Some really sexist, horribly misogynistic comments like that are plaguing the IMDb boards of this, and it's absolutely atrocious. It's absolutely disgusting. It's absolutely misogynistic as all crap, and it completely, the movie's not supposed to be enjoyable, but that mentality just makes you hate the movie. Lucky for me, I saw Contracted 2 before I checked out all the reviews because I was in a movie marathon. So I sat down and watched Contracted 2. And in Contracted 2, one of the characters flat out says the main character, the first one, was raped. And there's no reason for him to say this in the movie. It doesn't even make sense plot-wise. Like, he just randomly says it. The only reason they would put that in is because they found out about the controversy of the first one. They realized it looked atrocious, and they put that in to finally say to the people who were watching this movie, you silly people, you horrible people, it was a rape scene in the first one, just deal with it. She was raped, okay? See, this character said she was raped, so just deal with it, okay? Deal. So, I'm glad they put that in there. Number 2 was not nearly as good as number 1. It was a lot more generic. But still, I'm glad they put that in there. And because of that, I still respect the filmmakers. I realize that the advertisement campaign was beyond their control. But my God, don't ever go to a message board for this movie. Just watch the movie and enjoy it if you can, because it's a sad movie. But yeah, just don't check out a message board for it, please. Anyways, second best movie was Goosebumps. Oh, Goosebumps was awesome. Yeah, Goosebumps really was just an awesome movie. It did something that I hadn't seen in years. It was a horror movie for kids. And you barely ever see that, ever. And that's important because I'm of the mindset that horror should be for everyone and everybody has to start somewhere. So if there's no horror movies for kids, we're never going to get any new fans of the horror genre. And that sucks. Like when I was a kid, you had Gremlins and Beetlejuice and Are You Afraid of the Dark? All this horror material that you could grow up on. Nowadays, you got barely any horror for kids. So, Goosebumps is a fantastic star film if you want to get your kids into horror. It's a great film for the whole family. It's a lot of fun. It's a perfect movie to watch on Halloween with your family. A lot of jokes were very funny, had a very fast pace, lots of references in there for the books, lots of little nods. The more you read the books, the more you'll get out of the film, but of course you don't have to read the books a lot to get it out of the film. It just had a lot of great fun elements. It was just a roller coaster of pure joy, and I'm definitely going to buy that when it comes out on DVD, definitely. Then there was Tremors Bloodline, the new Tremors movie that I saw. Oh, that was good too. The Tremors series is about these sandworms that jump up out of the ground and eat people. Sounds awesome because it is. But each Tremors movie has been a little weaker than the last. And the last thing they did with Tremors was make a TV show, and it was really bad. But Tremors Bloodline, the fifth one in the series, was a real return to form. Not the best in the series, but the third best. Quite a step up from the last few. And it had that charm that the original first two had. It kind of reclaimed the fun of the original films, I felt. So it was a great blast to see. And if you really like the original Tremors, it's a lot in that same vein. It's got that same upbeat charm. It's got that same silly beat to it. And the last films that I should really mention were the Omen movies. I saw Omen 1, 2, and 3 from the 70s, from the original Omen series. If you're going to check out Omen, you can't just watch Omen. You have to watch Omen 1, 2, and 3 back to back to back as one film because they are one film. The first Omen is literally the opening. It doesn't actually end. It just suddenly stops. And you're like, that's weird. You put on 2 and 2 picks up right where it left off and it continues the story. So Omen 1, 2, and 3, they're all one big movie and they're all the Antichrist's life as he's born, grows up, comes to power and tries to take over the world because he's the freaking devil and that's what the freaking devil would do. So it's really good to see them all back to back because they fit into one film really well. It's kind of like watching Lord of the Rings or Back to the Future. It feels like one big movie. And if you just watch one of them, it feels weird, like you've only watched a small part of a big movie. You have to watch all of them. There was some flaws. I thought that they could have fleshed out how the Antichrist's powers worked a bit better. In the movie, random stuff just kind of happens and people just kind of dies, and you never see Damien's eyes flicker or go red when it happens to indicate the powers are coming from him. So you don't really know if the powers are coming from him. They could be coming from some random demon. If they are coming from Damien, that means he's fully aware of everything that's happening around him at all times and has control over everything. And if that's the case, that doesn't really make much sense, because he doesn't figure out that he's the Antichrist until midway through number 2. So if that's the case, who's killing all the people up until that point? None of it really makes sense when you stop to think about it. But besides for that, it's well directed. There are some epically awesome death scenes. When you watch it, you can tell it inspired Final Destination. I don't like the Final Destination movies, but you can tell it heavily inspired them, and the death scenes are very reminiscent of those, only they're way cooler. Like, there's this death scene in an elevator in part 2 that is just phenomenal. Oh, and I also saw The Visit, which was alright. It wasn't M. Night's best movie. People are hyping it up to be this great movie, and it's just alright. And I also saw Final Girl, a movie about a hitman taking on serial killers, which seemed a bit rushed. Should have been a lot cooler than it was, but it was still alright. And I saw John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness, which had a lot of great elements, a great cast, a fantastic score, but for some reason the pieces didn't work together. I guess it was a bit too slow, but still the cast is so good, and the score is so good. It's got a phenomenal score. I'm just going to recommend it anyways. You got to see it, at least for the cast and at least for the score. There are so many good people in it, and the score rocks so much, but it is a bit slow. But you still got to see it for those other elements, because those other elements make it worth it. So yeah, those were the best movies that I saw during this Halloween, and they were all... I had a great time. And I hope you did too. And maybe you'll check out some of those horror movies and have a fun time next Halloween. Until then, cheers, take care, and happy trick-or-treating. Good night.